Welcome back to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. Very excited for this episode because it's going to be who's going to win the NL East, the Phillies or the Mets. Now, in my video about the Atlanta Braves, I did say they are a legit threat to win the NL East, but in my opinion, I think the Mets and the Phillies are the top two. I wouldn't be surprised if the Braves won the NL East if they stayed healthy, but for this video and this video purposes, I'm strictly going to be Phillies versus Mets. I'm going to compare the rotation, the bullpen, the lineup, just everything. And then I'm going to give you my final opinion on who I think will win the NL East. Of course, I'm hoping the Phillies will win the NL East. And before I get into the rotation, I just want to let you know how much I hate the New York Mets because it's everything. It's their organization. It's their stadium. It's their fans. The fans are the absolute worst because they just don't know ball. They just think they're always going to win it, and they never do. The Mets will always Met. And it's the arrogance and the smugness which they carry themselves, especially after their 2024 NLCS appearance after they beat the Phillies. You would have thought they won the World Series. And I get it when you have nothing going on for your franchise in the past, God knows how many years, you're going to rely on an NLCS appearance as your trophy. But your trophy stuck in 1986, and it's going to remain that way. So I just don't like the New York Mets. I just think they're one of the most unfathomable franchise. They're just God, I hate the New York Mets. I mean, I could go on for an entire rant on how much I hate the New York Mets, but let's get into the team in the rotation because as much as I dislike the New York Mets, I'm not arrogant to where I don't know. They have a really good baseball team to where they could certainly win the NL East. So let's just get right into it. And we're going to go into comparing. So the Mets rotation, they got Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Kodai Senga, Jonah Tong. Now, obviously, not all of them are going to be in the rotation because there's only 5 spots. They might do a 6-man rotation, but I'm not sure. Some teams like that, some teams don't. And usually when it's a 6-man rotation, it's towards the later end of the year to where they have a lot of games back to back. They want to rest up their starters for playoffs. So they do have a lot of depth. I will give the Mets that. The Phillies lack depth in the rotation. Now, we might go get a starter. I don't know. Walker Buehler could come back. Verlander's still out there. Scherzer's still out there. We'll see. But right now, the Mets definitely have them in pure depth, but I think the Phillies have them in pure talent because now, granted, all of this is dependent on health to where that's the story for every major league team. If you stay healthy, you have a better chance to win. If you don't stay healthy, you most likely won't make the playoffs, similar to what happened to the Atlanta Braves last year. They had a really good team. They were just riddled with injuries. So this entire concept of these comparisons between the rotation, lineup, and bullpen is if everyone stays healthy. Of course, that's not the case, but for the purpose of this video, that's what we're going to do. So Phillies, Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, Andrew Painter, Taijuan Walker. So Zach Wheeler's not going to start the year, but he should be back by May. I think Zach Wheeler and Christopher Sanchez are clear better starting pitchers than Freddie Peralta and Nolan McLean. And I'm going to make this bold prediction because in a video a couple of months ago, I had my 5 breakout players for 2026, and I had Jesus Luzardo on there. One, because I think he's going to use his 2025 and build off that because it was a really good year. He had 2 blow-up starts that inflated his ERA. Take those out, he has a 3.03 ERA and 190 innings with 200 strikeouts. That's legit. And combine that with him being in the contract year. I want the Phillies to extend him, but for some reason, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't have any faith in Dave Dombrowski. So that just motivation of him 1 year away from his big payday. I think Jesus Luzardo is going to have a better season than Freddie Peralta. And I think Freddie Peralta, his ceiling is higher because of his stuff, but Luzardo, his stuff is electric as well. 97, 98, 99 from the left side. With that changeup, Jesus Luzardo is a dog, and he's an innings eater. He will go into the 6th, to the 7th, to the 8th. Freddie Peralta simply doesn't do that. Now, you can say, well, maybe that was just the Brewers system to where the Mets are going to let him go a little bit more. I could buy into that, but until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. So I think the Phillies have a slight edge over the Mets in the rotation. I think it's close just because of what the New York Mets have to offer in the depth category. They have more starting pitchers that can log the innings to where, God forbid, there's an injury on the Philly side. If we don't go out and get a starter, we could be absolutely screwed. But I'm still going to give the Phillies the edge in the rotation. Go Phils. The bullpen. This is clear Phillies, right? But for purposes of this video, let's go through the bullpen. The Mets closer's Devin Williams. Okay. Luke Weaver, AJ Minter, Brooks Raley, Tobias Myers, who I really like in the sense of they were able to pick him up as well in the Freddie Peralta deal. David Stearns doing David Stearns things. Great pickup. So I like him. Husker, Brazenbot. If I botched the name, my apology. But I heard he's a train wreck with the Mets. I don't think they like him, but who knows? Luis Garcia, good freaking luck. And then Dylan Ross was the pitcher. I believe he got called up that Saturday against the Marlins when the Mets had their epic collapse, but he did pitch an inning. But from what I know, and I don't know too much, so Mets fans, correct me in the comments. I'm sure you're going to be saying some stuff in the comments regardless based on this video. But he has really good stuff to where I think he can be a big contributor into this bullpen. And I think he's going to have to log innings because I think the Mets bullpen sucks because Williams, to me, is always the ideal setup man for what he did with Josh Hader. Now, he had that great 2024 season when he was the closer for Milwaukee, but he struggled in New York. And you could say, well, maybe he's not made for the big market. I don't know, because maybe it's an adjustment period to where he just needed 1 year and he did it in the Bronx to where coming to the Mets, I believe, is a slightly easier transition to where he's been there, done that. And he did have a good second half. So I don't think he's a bad closer. I just would have loved it more. Well, not loved it at all. I'm happy what happened letting Edwin Diaz walk, but just in the non-biased baseball fan, I think it would have been really beneficial to re-sign Edwin Diaz and have Devin Williams as a setup man because him as a setup man with a little bit less pressure is phenomenal. Luke Weaver, I just think he's one of those relievers. He's going to have a great year. He's going to have a bad year. Most relievers are fickle. I don't think he's at that upper echelon to where he can have consistency. Now, he was battling a hamstring injury with the New York Yankees, so maybe he's fully healthy. Maybe he's able to relive some of his 2024 form. But that's your two guys, and you're relying on them heavily. I don't think that spells success for the New York Mets bullpen. AJ Minter coming off an injury, an oblique injury. When he was with the Braves, when he was healthy, he was a good pitcher. He gave the Phillies fits. But big question with health. And then the rest of the bullpen is kind of like, I like Tobias Myers, but just a lot of question marks. Now, you can say you can go into a season with a bad bullpen. You could fix at the trade deadline. Similar to what the Phillies did because we had Jordan Romano, we had Joe Ross, Carlos Hernandez. April, May, and June was a freaking nightmare. And then we rebuilt it with Johan Duran. Now, granted, the bullpen did struggle to where you can rebuild it, but you can't rebuild the entire bullpen at a trade deadline. You can make a trade for a big closer, but it doesn't always work out because the Phillies bullpen, Duran was good. Kirkland, love me some Ryan Kirkland. We know it happened. Matt Strom sucked. So, yeah, I just don't like the Mets bullpen going into it at all. But let's get to the Phillies bullpen. Like I said, Johan Duran, one of the best closers in Major League Baseball. Can't wait for his light show entrance on the first day. Maybe opening day, that'd be all. Well, it's a day game. But I think they still do it. Whatever. Love me some Johan Duran. Brad Keller, I think, is the Phillies' best signing of the offseason. Well, Kyle Schwarber, but like best signing of a new player. I think Brad Keller is going to build off his 2025 with the Cubs. I think he's meant to be a reliever. He's one of those guys to where you have kind of like a bad starter, not great, not terrible, but just like middle of the pack, 94, 95. And then he transitions to the bullpen, and his stuff is just freaking electric to where we finally have a right-hander that can set up behind Johan Duran. And then Kerkering, I did a whole video on him. I think he's going to use the tragic incident that happened Game 4 against the Dodgers. I think he can use his motivation. I think he's going to have an electric 2026 season. Based on how he handled everything, I think the stuff is there. Now it's all about the mental makeup. And I think Kerkering has already hit rock bottom to where it could only go up from here. And then you put him in a role to where he can be the 6th, 7th inning guy. I think Kerkering is going to have a phenomenal 2026 season. And those are your top 3 right-handers. The Phillies bullpen is top 5 in Major League Baseball. And if you disagree, you simply don't know ball. And then let's go into the left-handers. Jose Alvarado, our lovable Jose Alvarado who got suspended for PEDs. That's done, right? When he got suspended, I was highly critical of him because it's like you let your entire team down. If we had a healthy Jose Alvarado in the playoffs, maybe that would have made a difference. But nevertheless, that's done. And in my video, a couple videos ago, I did Forget about 2025. It's time to focus on the 2026 Phils, and that's the energy I'm going to put into Jose Alvarado. If he returns to his 22-23 form, God help the entire league. Now, I don't know if he's going to return to the form because he was electric to start the year. Come to find out, why was he electric? He was taking performance enhancers. And save me the crap of it was Ozempic. He was doing it for a weight loss drug. There was testosterone in the drug he was taking. It clearly made a difference. Now, maybe he doesn't take it this year. He returns to his form. He locates. If Jose Alvarado returns to his 22-23 form, the Phillies are going to have the best bullpen in baseball. And then Tanner Banks. So Tanner Banks had a phenomenal 2025 season. Big game Banks, big balls Banks. The thing about Tanner Banks that always scares the living hell out of me is his stuff is it's just so middle of the pack. Now, he knows how to use his stuff effectively. He hits his spots. He was phenomenal with that. But the thing about Tanner Banks is if he's not perfect in his location, he can get absolutely rocked. Now, granted, he's your second lefty out of the pen to where I don't love it. I would love at the trade deadline, if the lefty side is struggling, we go out and make an addition. So Tanner Banks does worry me, but I think he's still a pretty solid major league reliever. And then Kyle Bacchus is the last lefty in the pen. So he gets lefties out well. He has a weird arm angle. Gotta love that for bullpen relievers. To where if he's your last lefty in the pen and he's strictly a lefty specialist, I think that there's a good chance he has a successful season for the Phillies. What I think they'll do is in the first couple months of the year, they'll put him in all situations because you got to see what you have. You can't just strictly confine a player to a specific role in the bullpen to start the year because injuries are going to happen. People are going to struggle to where you want to get them used to the situations early in the season to where if it's June, July, you're in a race with the Mets for the NL East, and then you put a guy in a situation that he hasn't done all year, similar to when he put D-Rob in a up-down situation that David Robertson didn't do in the NLDS against the Dodgers, and we saw how that backfired. So we'll see what happens with Kyle Bacchus. I think he has a chance to be a solid major league reliever. And then Bauman from the Royals that we got for Matt Strahm, I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. He has a lot of control, but he has to be on the big league roster because he's out of major league options to where he would have to clear waivers before getting sent down. So I think he's clearly going to be in the bullpen. We'll see what happens. Zach Pop for me is the X factor. He's the pitcher we got in the Rule 5 draft from Miami. And similar to Bauman, he can't be sent down because in the Rule 5 draft, the rule is you have to be on the major league roster for 90 days, I believe. You can't be sent back down or you get returned to the organization. Oh, wait, that's not Zach Pop. That's Zach McCamby. My bad. Zach McCamby. So I saw a bullpen with a lot of his stuff. It looks electric to where if he's the last guy in your bullpen, I think he's going to be a very valuable last inning guy or first guy in the pen if someone struggles. Now, Zach Pop is the guy that we signed from Toronto. I don't think he's going to make the major league roster. I don't think his stuff is good. He's had like 2 back-to-back terrible seasons. So I don't think he fits into that rotation. But overall, went on a tangent with the bullpen. I'm a Baseball for Maniacs guy. That's the name of the page. I love the bullpen, and I think the Phillies have the clear edge over the New York Mets. Now let's get into the lineup and the position players because I'll spoil it right now. I think the Mets have a much better lineup than the Phillies to where I think the Phillies rotation and bullpen is better, but the lineup for the Mets is better to where I think this is going to be an absolute dogfight from March to the end of September. But let's start off with the catching position. So the Mets have Francisco Alvarez and Luis Torrens. The Phillies have JT and Marchand. You could say Stubbs, but I don't think Stubbs makes the major league roster unless Marchand or JT gets injured. And Stubbs is out of options to where he would have to clear waivers as well to remain in the organization. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. Love me some Garrett Stubbs, but if it's time for him to go, don't let the door hit you on the way out for what you said. In regards to the Arizona Diamondbacks and the pool situation, all Phillies fans know what I'm talking about. But I give the Mets the clear edge. Francisco Alvarez, if you guys remember his 2025, he was terrible to start off the year. He actually got sent down to AAA, and then he went off. And then when he came back up to the big league level, he was hitting the cover off the baseball to where I think he's going to take that success to end the season last year, and he's going to bring it into 2026. And then Luis Torrens, he's a damn good backup to where when he was playing more frequently when Alvarez was struggling to start the year, he provided a pretty good spark. And if that's your backup catcher, I think that gives you a level of depth that not many major league teams have. Excuse me. And I love me some JT, but I think Alvarez is starting to get into his prime, and JT's leaving his prime. I think he's already left his prime. So I give the catching position to the New York Mets. First base, Jorge Polanco or Bryce Harper. You guys know my answer. It's Bryce freaking Harper, and it's not even close. Second base is very interesting because Marcus Semien will be doing it for the Mets, and Bryson Stott / Edmundo Sosa will be doing it for the Phillies. And Marcus Semien and Bryson Stott both play second base defensively extremely well. They're one of the top 5 defenders in Major League Baseball. So I think they kind of cancel each other out defensively. It's now you're going to have to look at the offensive side. And I think overall in totality, clearly Marcus Semien is a better hitter in his career than Bryson Stott. But Marcus Semien is on the back end of his career, and he had a 593 OPS post All-Star break. Bryson Stott had an 855 OPS post All-Star break, to where I think I'm going to give the edge to Bryson Stott at second base. I think that swing adjustment was real. I think there's a chance Bryson Stott is the starting second baseman for the National League All-Star team in South Philadelphia. But I do think it's close to where if Marcus Semien has a bounce back year offensively, Bryson Stott kind of goes back to what he was doing to the start of 2025. Obviously, the Mets will have the advantage. But going into the season, I give the advantage to the Philadelphia Phillies and Bryson Stott. Shortstop. So shortstop is a very interesting position because it's Francisco Lindor versus Trey Turner, right? I did a video on why I think Trey Turner is better than Francisco Lindor. Now, that was strictly a 2025 season comparison because you can't deny that Trey Turner had the better year last year. But this is a 2026 preview to where who do I think is going to be the better player? And I think Francisco Lindor is going to be better than Trey Turner because I think Trey Turner had his absolute peak year with the Phillies last year, to where he's down for digression, especially on the defensive side. Because the thing about Lindor and Trey, Lindor for his career is a much better defender, but last year, if you look at the numbers, Trey was slightly better than him defensively. But I think if you are going off projections, you have to take the totality of the career, to where I think defense can be the most consistent thing if you do it well consistently, to where I think Trey's due for a little bit of a digression. And I think Francisco Lindor is just going to be who Francisco Lindor is on the defensive side. And not to give the Mets too much credit or Lindor, like he was a slightly different player after he fouled off that ball in Los Angeles where he broke his toe, to where a fully healthy Francisco Lindor not playing in the WBC, which I think is a travesty. Like with the whole insurance policy, dude, grow the game of baseball. Let Francisco Lindor play for Puerto Rico. But that we'll do that in another episode. I think Lindor is going to have a clear better season than Trey Turner. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't want to be too biased, so I'm going to give the shortstop edge to the New York Mets and Francisco Lindor. Third base, it's not even close. Bo Bichette is better than Alec Bohm or any combination of Otto Kemp and Edmundo Sosa. We all know how I feel about Bo Bichette. I felt like he was the X factor to give us a real shot against the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 2026 season. Obviously, that didn't happen. He went to the New York Mets. I mean, I don't think Bo Bichette is worth the contract he got, but when the Mets are the team to give him that contract, it doesn't really matter because money doesn't mean anything to them because they got Steve Cohen as the owner. So the Mets have the clear advantage at third base. Let's get into the outfield. Left field, so I think Carson Bench is going to be the left fielder for the New York Mets, and I think Brandon Marsh and Otto Kemp is going to be the left field duo for the Phillies. So I think Carson Bench is going to be a good Major League player, but with these kids that have never played Major League Baseball, I can't really give them the edge over proven guys like Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh against right-handed pitching is a problem in a good way. Like he mashes right-handed pitching. And then if you put Otto Kemp in left field against lefties, Otto Kemp mashes left-handed pitching, to where I think Carson Bench is going to be a good player, but I give the edge to the Phillies just based on proven production. And similar on that point, as we get into center field, Luis Robert over Justin Crawford. I'd be biased if I said Justin Crawford because Justin Crawford hasn't played at the big league level yet. Luis Robert has. And I think this Luis Robert trade is phenomenal for the New York Mets. One, because money doesn't matter. You're taking on that $20 million. That's pocket change to Steve Cohen. Luis Robert, I felt victim to his situation with the Chicago White Sox because I get it. You want to say you're a major leaguer, go out, play your game, and getting paid a lot of money. But when you're in an environment like the White Sox have been in the last couple of years of just losing baseball, it's hard to get up. It's hard to be the best version of yourself. And we saw at the trade deadline or the couple weeks before the trade deadline last year, Luis Robert was tearing the cover off the baseball. And I think that's a direct correlation if he's like, yo, let me like lock in, let me get out of this hellhole of a situation, to where I think when he gets into an environment like the New York Mets, like a team that's trying to win a World Series, a team that has a chance to win a World Series, you're going to see a version of Luis Robert similar to what he was in 2023 or 22, one of those years when he had his best year. I don't think he's ever going to reach those levels, but I think center field is clear Luis Robert over Justin Crawford. I think Justin Crawford is going to be a good player. I hope he makes me eat my words, but going into the prediction, don't want to be too biased. Luis Robert over Justin Crawford. And then right field, I mean, what are we doing? Juan Soto, Adolis Garcia. I'm very excited about Adolis Garcia, but Juan Soto is one of the best players in Major League Baseball, one of the best hitters of all time. And he struggled a little bit to start the year, but Juan Soto's struggles are other players' career years, to where he still was in the middle to 800 OPSs, and then he just went off in the second half. Juan Soto scares the living hell out of me for what he's going to do with the New York Mets in 2026. I think Ohtani's always going to win the MVP. It's just simply because he pitches and hits. But if Ohtani wasn't pitching, I would have Juan Soto as my National League MVP front runner. So clearly, the Mets have the advantage in right field. All right. So I basically broke down the entire Major League team, Mets versus Phillies. So who do I think is going to win the NL East, and who would I give the upper edge in my prediction? This might surprise you guys. I have the New York Mets winning the NL East. I just think with how everything ended last year, the motivation, how they changed the core, I think the energy in the Phillies clubhouse versus the Mets clubhouse is completely going in the opposite direction, to where the Mets, there's something new. There's something vibrant in that clubhouse, to where they let their core go. They dismantled that. The Mets sent a clear message to the team, to the players in that current clubhouse, and the entire city. We're not those same New York Mets. I think the Mets will always have the stench of a terrible organization. The Mets will always Met. That's always in the back of my head. But I think the Mets have something to prove. And the energy in the Phillies clubhouse, with the media, with how the off seasons went, with the running it back, with everyone aging. Oh man, I'm not that enthused about how the Phillies are going to go into the season, because it just feels like the sky is falling. It feels like it's negative Nancy. It feels like WIP every single day is going to be, I don't care that they won a game. Oh, what are they going to do in October? So I do give the Mets a slight edge. I think it's going to be very close. Like I said, I think it's going to be a dogfight the entire year, to where health is going to be the main factor, as it is with any major league team. But another point that I give to the New York Mets is the age of their superstars. Juan Soto's 27, Francisco Lindor's 31, Bo Bichette's 27, Kyle Schwarber's 33, Trey Turner's 33. Well, he turns 33 on June 30th. Bryce Harper's 33. So the Mets are younger, to where I don't think this is the year we see the regression from the stars, but it's funny with Major League Baseball and these players and superstars. It's like, the sky could fall out of nowhere and they could just simply not be who they were, to where I don't think that's going to happen this year, but it is a possibility. Combine that with they're getting older, there could be injuries. Trey Turner's been injured the last 2 years with his hamstring. Last year it was in September, and then the year before that it was in May. And that's his game, that's speed, to where that does give me pause for concern. But what I always have in my back pocket is that the New York Mets will Met. But this episode, I kind of wanted to be unbiased. I kind of wanted to give you my true opinion. I don't want to come here for clicks saying the Mets suck, they're going to miss the playoffs, there's no shot, the Mets will Met. I always think the Mets will kind of Met, just because that stench of an organization. But I think this team is different. I think they have a new vibe in the clubhouse, a new energy, to where it does scare me a little bit. But like I said, I think it's going to be very close, to where I would not be surprised if the Phillies run away with it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mets run away with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Braves stay healthy and they sneak in and win the NL East. I think the Mets and Phillies, no matter what, will make the playoffs, to where if the Mets win the NL East, the Phillies will be the 4 or 5 seed. Braves, more of a wild card. It's like they could go one way or the other. They could be the best team in baseball, or they can have a year similar to last year. I have no idea. But I think the Mets and Phillies will both definitely be in the playoffs. think the Mets have the edge in winning the NL East, but we're going to have to wait and see. Let me know what you guys think. Phillies fans, Mets fans, do you agree with my analysis? Do you think I'm an idiot? Please tell me everything you believe. But that's going to do it for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs. Very excited for the season. As much as I dislike the New York Mets, it's great for Major League Baseball when the Phillies and Mets are good at the same time, because I think it truly is the best rivalry in sports. Kind of biased because I'm in the rivalry, but you could say Boston, New York, that's kind of fizzled over the years. San Diego, LA was at its height in 24, 23, 22, but I think the Padres are going one way. The Dodgers, we all know about the Dodgers. So I think the Phillies-Mets rivalry is going to be the best rivalry in Major League Baseball in 2026. So let me know what you guys think, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs.